Hi, everyone, and welcome to Our Disabled Future, a series where disabled voices lead the way. I'm your host, Nico, and it is a good day for disability inclusion. Each day, during Disability Pride Month and beyond, I'm amplifying real disabled stories, where we are, where we want to go, and how the heck we're going to get there. Together, I hope. Today, I'm thrilled to be joined by Shayna. Let's dive in. Hi, Shayna. Thank you for joining me.
Thank you for having me, Nico. I appreciate being here today.
Of course. So tell us about yourself and about your disabled life.
Well, first off, hi everyone. Thank you for listening. Thank you, Nico, again for having this. We appreciate it. And I agree. Hopefully, we can get to a better disabled future for everybody. For me, I actually have an invisible disability. So I'm very happy that I get the chance to highlight that particular piece because I know that that sometimes gets a little bit in the weeds with some folks. Um, so for me, I am currently a communications coordinator for my local Meals on Wheels. I am the youth commissioner for the state of Pennsylvania. So I was appointed by Governor Shapiro in September of 2023 to represent and oversee and advocate for youth-led service learning projects across the state of the Pennsylvania, the Commonwealth. Um, and I am currently Northeastern Pennsylvania's only representative on America's Youth Bureau, America 250's Youth Bureau, Youth 250. Basically a collegiate bunch of individuals. It is 100 individuals throughout the country that have been selected to represent Gen Z and Gen Alpha for America's 250th anniversary. Um, as for my particular disability, so I was diagnosed with juvenile dermatomyositis at the age of 4. Basically, juvenile dermatomyositis is an autoimmune disease that attacks the healthy white blood cells in your body, and keyword being myositis in this case. It shows up in the form of skin rashes on your body and also skin irritants. So redness, picking around the nails can lead to scars around the nails, and things of that nature. It's a rare disorder. Only 5,000 folks, last I checked, have ever had it. Um, and majority of the time, the individuals that actually have my disorder at such a young age, they end up not being able to walk, and that's very, very unfortunate for the majority of them. And I'm very happy to be on the side that is able to walk, able to get around, and able to take part in everyday life. So then I could talk a little bit more about that particular disability with folks. Um, I was diagnosed at the age of 4 via a muscle biopsy. And from the ages of 4 to about 17, I was on anabolic steroids, so methotrexate, prednisone, etc., in order to help build muscle mass on my person, but also to combat against the white blood cells that were continuously attacking my body. Um, that had to be homeschooled on and off for the majority of my adolescent years. I had to go into the hospital pretty much every weekend from like the ages of 10 to 12 to get a special treatment done. And obviously, between the ages of 10 and 12, folks want to do slumber parties and hang out with their friends and things. And I ended up not doing any of that stuff. Um, so unfortunately, I think another thing that came up as a result of this particular disability was I was socially isolated a lot. So as a result of that, that increased things like anxiety and depression. Which is why I'm kind of okay doing the interview. So I'm sorry in advance for folks that hear it and are like, oh my gosh, just doing the rambling. Um, I'm not very much used to doing one-on-one conversations. I'm more of a public speaker, and even then, that's been a little bit watered down since. with COVID, especially being socially isolated, that's intensified those feelings of anxiety and depression and things of that nature. So I've been out of that particular stunt of my life, dermatomyositis, for since I was 18, so about 8 years now. It'll be a decade once I turn 28. It's one of those things that unfortunately doesn't have a cure. So they say, symptoms can come back, but typically those that are in remission, the symptoms don't come back. So fingers crossed that it stays that way. But of course, with it be with it happening at such a young age, they are lasting side effects and things that you do have to take into consideration as you navigate through your life post diagnosis. So yeah, that is pretty much it. I haven't had any major symptoms since that point in time, again, minus the anxiety, depression, and social anxiety and things of that nature. I think is more of a result of the social isolation from that particular disease disorder, um, versus actual symptoms of it. So that would include things like muscle fatigue, weakness in the body, excessive falling, and things of that nature, pretty much. So I haven't dealt with anything physical. Thankfully, it's more of the social and mental aspects of it. But, again, I like I'm coming to terms with speaking about it a little bit more because, and I mean, I'll talk about it a little bit later, but I was uncomfortable in the beginning when I got my diagnosis because I did not want to be the disabled child in school. Um, and I didn't want to have, alternative schedules. I didn't want to not play in gym, go to gym class with everyone and do an alternative activity. Like I just wanted to be like everybody else. Um, but now I'm learning that in coming with accepting your identity, you have to accept pieces of yourself, even if you don't like those pieces or don't want to accept those pieces. Because first, letter A, you never know who you're going to help with that particular acceptance. But letter B, in order to truly present yourself fully in the world, you have to be able to fully identify with you, pretty much. And you is good, bad, and ugly. So I'm coming full circle now to accepting that particular piece of my identity. There's still bouts again where I have like, I don't know about that, guys. Um, but in doing projects like this and meeting individuals like Nico, and I mean, I'm slowly but surely coming to terms with like not being so timid around or afraid around the label of disability and more like person with blank, and using blank as a superpower or hopefully a bridging of the gap for somebody, whoever may be listening to the rambling. So yeah, that's pretty much me in a nutshell.
Thanks, Shayna. It definitely does take a certain kind of courage to sit down and have conversations like this. So I want to honor that in you. You've done a great job of talking about your diagnosis, your symptoms, and how they impact you even today. So, what does a disability friendly future look like for you?
So I have been sitting and processing this since I was selected. Again, thank you for doing the interview, because for myself, again, I'm on the latter side of things. I don't have a visible disability. Um, so it's very much like, well, why do you need help? Why do you need extra assistance? Why, like, so for me, and I'm only speaking from my experience here. Um, for me, I wish there was more understanding around the spectrum that is disability. When I was growing up in school and I wasn't able to walk or participate in gym class or do physical activities, etc., it's like, okay, obviously we don't want the girl who's a florist to do dodgeball. Like that's easy. That makes sense to folks. But as I started getting older and going through things like adolescence, I started dealing with issues pertaining to self-esteem and anxiety and depression. And that stuff you can't you don't necessarily see on an individual, and especially individuals of color and individuals of different genders. It's very difficult to spot out those symptoms because it's very easy to hide or mask those particular symptoms underneath other things. So for me, the way that I tend to hide or mask a lot of those symptoms is through humor. Um, but again, people, being humorous, being funny, being smart and kind, things of that nature, people are like, oh, that's great. Those are amazing qualities, fantastic. And they encourage those qualities without understanding why those particular pieces take place. And same thing with when I was in high school, there was a point in time where I was just like so out of it. I did not physically want to go to school anymore, but I understood that socially isolating myself from my peers was not going to do me any good either, especially growing up and being socially isolated and that being one of the bridges to those particular problems. And I actually had a guidance counselor pretty much say, sorry, there's nothing that we can do. So I just wish that there was more understanding of the spectrum that is disabilities, and not just visible ones, but also invisible ones, and being able to accommodate to those as much as the actual physical ones. Because again, it it's easy if somebody has a broken leg, a broken arm, you give them the accommodations because you can see that the accommodation is necessary. But if somebody tells you, I'm really anxious, I'm suffering from symptoms of depression, or, I've been diagnosed with bipolar, schizophrenia, etc., we tend to take those particulars a little on the harsher side, i.e., you'll figure it out, you'll grow out of it, everything will be fine, just go outside, touch some grass, that sort of thing. Um, and there's a lot more nuance to that than needed. And I understand too that there's only a certain uh, I'll bounce into it in the next question presumably. But I know to a point that folks do the very best that they can, and I'm never not saying folks aren't trying, doing, etc. They are trying, they are doing, etc. It's that there needs to be more of a priority for certain there needs to be more of a priority for certain invisible disabilities, especially for individuals who are under the age of 18, because that's usually when it hits the hardest. So I think so. In general, I just think that there just needs to be more of an understanding in general of the spectrum, and then discussions on how to accommodate to those particular invisible disabilities as needed, and then flexibility in that as well too, because there are some folks that, you know, they have seasonal affective depression. How exactly do we accommodate to that alongside somebody that has depression? How do we accommodate somebody that has social anxiety versus, generalized anxiety or complicated post-traumatic stress syndrome and things of that nature? So not only understanding, but also allowing for flexibility in those particular understandings of the spectrum too.
I think we all want that future together. That's a great answer. I also think society at large would be better if they understood disability as a spectrum. So, Shayna, you've given me a really good vision of where you want to go. So, how are we going to get there? What specific strategies do we need to use to build that future? What do you think?
Specific strategies. This goes a little bit back into everyone is doing their best and everyone's trying. There just needs to be a little bit more in that case scenario. I, to a point, understand that school guidance counselors, they're only trained for a certain set of issues, problems, etc. And that's their bread and butter. That's what they do. That is not a knock on the guidance counselors at all in that case scenario. It's more of a question of, okay, for the more advanced problems or complications, is there a caseworker? Is there a social worker? Is there a psychologist on site? And things of that nature, to accommodate to those particular needs and problems. Because again, kids spend 8+ hours in school with after school activities, developing their friendships and things of that nature. Um, and if there's an individual that's dealing with something like bullying, that is such a massive issue now, especially with the younger generation. And with the age of the internet, it's even worse. Um, so having individuals on that have the accommodations or that bridge of understanding in order to help those particular students. And in that same vein, I know teachers are not paid enough. Neither is the school system's not as updated as it should be either. So I would hope that in order for that particular future to be met, I would hope that there is not just prioritization in the minds of the change make change makers, I'll say in that case scenario, um, like people with a lot, billionaires and politician folks, um, but also individuals in the education system as well too, but also civic engagement as well too. I think it's really important that communities get together and prioritize things such as making sure that their particular accommodations are met, but also one example is here we have our school board elections that are currently running right now. And one of the candidates is basically saying, hey, we want to run the cyber school similar to how you would run a business. So we want to have all these activities, we want to have this engagement, we want to pay the teachers more, the whole entire thing. But while sitting there and listening to his plan, I was sitting there thinking to myself, I was like, you know, activities, paying people more, like all of that stuff is great, but like what is the core reason why? Do you know the core reason why students are choosing to go to cyber school over in-person schooling? And from my personal experience, I can tell you why. And from a lot of the news stories and whatnot too, the parents of those students can tell you why too. And it's very it's very unfortunate that we have folks that look at education also as a business versus what it actually is, which is service. It's people oriented service at the end of the day. And the people, the children, high schoolers, etc., those are the individuals that need to come first. And the same exact thing applies to collegiate students as well too. I I had the fortune of actually going to school here, um, with my family and folks and things of that nature. While a lot of my peers, they moved off to other places and things of that nature, but had to come back because they couldn't be moved out on their own because that was just such a major culture shock at the age of 18, which again is not something that is taught to you in schools. Um, and again, that isn't the fault, asterisk. That is not the fault of all schools, rather. It's more of an issue pertaining to lack of resources and lack of funding. So in the climate that we're currently in, as of right now, I would highly encourage individuals nailing down and even doubling down, especially if this is something they've been talking about, um, and advocating for this particular issue, and whether that's understanding disabilities on a spectrum, um, getting more funding so you can get a caseworker or a psychologist, or even reevaluating, because some folks, when they get hired and whatnot, there's not a reevaluation we don't have a ton of reevaluation processes up here, so there's not a checks and balance system for accountability present. So a lot of the folks just are here taking time, taking issues and things of that nature and just putting them aside when you need to be an active participant in that as well too. So even finding a way to hold your peers accountable to make sure that the individuals who you're serving, the students in this case scenario, are the ones that are being served and helped the most. So again, I don't have all the answers. I would hope that folks that are more in the education bracket have a better handling and understanding of it. But for me personally, that's what I would like to see. Just more engagement from the community as centered around one particular issue, an accountability system for especially the higher ups, and treating education more like it is a people oriented thing versus a business. And I think that should be the case with, I know I talked about education like super much, but that personally to me should apply to any field that has to deal with people. So whether that's public transportation, whether that's housing, whether that's food insecurity, etc. I think that making sure that people are reminded that, hey, this is a people-centered piece. This is a people-centered sector, industry. This is about the people. I think that would be extremely helpful. And I think that would allow more of that understanding of the spectrum of disability to become present. And I think that would allow people to be more engaged and actively want to continue making sure that spectrum is present, not just for disability, but gender, sexual orientation, amongst other things. So then we can best accommodate, and we as a community, in this case scenario, and we as people can best accommodate to everybody's needs.
That sounds wonderful. That was a very comprehensive answer. Thank you. As our time together draws to a close, I want to give you a chance that you and I, as disabled people, really rarely get, and that is a chance to promote yourself, talk about anything cool you've recently done or are doing. If you want to grow your presence online, where can people find you? This is your chance to just step up on your soapbox and promote yourself quick a second. Brag away.
Okay. Well, thank you again, Nico, for having me. I appreciate it, and I appreciate everybody's just filtering through the ramblings of sorts. Hopefully you guys got something out of that. I think the quickest answer in this case scenario would pretty much just be to Google me. I Googled myself this morning, and my Facebook, my Instagram, my LinkedIn was all the first things that popped up. Alongside an article that I did back in 2023, which is officially being used as part of a Wikipedia page. So, yeah, I'm wiki famous. Alongside a couple of other things. So, feel free to look me up on LinkedIn. It's Shayna Canty, and Facebook and Instagram as well too. But if there's any other lookout, wanting to know news, etc., feel free to just Google my name. Apparently, I've got some news stories out there. And again, thank you for hosting this, Nico. I really do appreciate you platforming us individuals, whether visible disability or invisible disability, to have a voice in this particular matter and hopefully make some change somewhere with someone, hopefully.
Hannah, thank you so much. I'll look forward to making that change with you in the future. All right, folks, tune in next time. Remember, this is our disabled future, and we're building it one day at a time together. Wherever you go, whatever you do, I'm rooting for you, and I can't wait to see what you do next. Bye.